Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, September 17th. I'm Gary Stevens. Third Thursday of the month, we devote our time to find out what's going on at Holland City Hall. And under the direction of Mayor Nathan Box, he has graciously shared normally the time that we chat with him to other members of the Holland City Council to join us to answer some questions and take your phone calls at 395-1450. I am pleased on the other side of our Zoom connection to have the senior member in terms of longevity of the Holland City Council. He is also Mayor Pro Tem, First Ward Councilman Mike Trethewey on the other end of our Zoom connection. Mike, good morning and welcome back to WHTC. Good morning, Gary. It's great to be with you again. Glad you are with us. And if you have a question for Mayor Pro Tem Trethewey, he'll be happy to answer to 395-1450, 395-1450. We'll begin our conversation with the old term, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And the squeaky wheel being us in the Holland area. The grease is repairs on the trunk line heading out towards the Heinz plant that crosses River and Pine Avenues. And the ones that have to deal with it is CSX. They're going to start working on it next week. Gary, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that this is going to happen. We've been working on this for 2 or 3 years now. You and your listeners have been very instrumental in this. We just had another foray of emails and phone calls down to Florida, which I'm hoping is what triggered this. But there was probably a very loud shout coming from the Heights yesterday when I learned the news that this was going to happen, because we have been dealing with this, like I said, for a couple of years, and I'm personally dealing with it because I work right there in that corner. So I'm very, very fully aware of what that intersection is like, and it's a welcome relief. It's going to be, as Peg has said in her news reports, it's going to be a little bit of an inconvenience for a short period of time, but the outcome is going to be absolutely great. More on that in a moment. Let's get to a call. Good morning. You're on the line with Councilman Mike Trethewey.
Yeah, I think the whole train track thing is everybody's rejoicing over that. That was an awesome thing to see. But my question for you, Mr. Trethewey, is regarding the change of vote from 2011 with the recent ordinance with fair housing and stuff to now. Just if you could, I guess you were always a kind of a stalwart supporter of. I mean, you would fall on the conservative side, I think, on a lot of things. No criticism, just wondering though, the difference from 2011 to 2020 and the change of vote, because I think that was the surprise that for a lot of people that I know, that they were surprised that you had changed the vote, because you were kind of you were, I guess, right alongside Nancy DeBoer and stuff on other decisions. So no criticism. I'm just looking for information because people have asked me about it, and I thought, well, we'll just call and ask you. So I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you very much for the call, Mike.
Great. Not a problem at all. And if people listened to me 11 years ago, I said the same message I did just a few weeks ago, is that I don't appreciate, I don't endorse, I don't do anything to encourage discrimination. But as it was 11 years ago, and I've said this many times, specifically up in my ward, up in the Heights here, which tends to be a little bit more on the conservative side, and I'm not bashful to say that, yes, that's the way I lean, even though we are nonpartisan on the city council. I was split down to the person with comments, emails, phone calls, 50-50. And I said to Reverend Freeman at the time, and he and I had met a couple of times, that if you would put this in front of the people, get a referendum going, and I would be the first one to sign that referendum. I just could not vote for it at the time with the comments that were going. Now, what's changed this time is there was a number of different things that were brought in there. This was not just on LGBTQ plus. This was height, weight, and a number of other things. Disabilities was one of the things that triggered me and helped me change my vote on this. I could not throw, and I'm sorry about the pun here, throw out the baby with the bathwater to be able to not vote for this. So that was probably the biggest change and the biggest reason I changed that. I'm hoping there is still some opposition out there, and I'm hoping if people feel very strongly, and we said it many times, get a referendum out there, put it in front of the people, and we can be done with it once and for all.
Let me ask you a follow-up question along the lines of group homes. That has been a concern to some people in other communities, that when a group home comes in, some of the neighbors aren't too happy about that type of situation.
Right. And there's a fear, I guess, Gary, that we're going to look at the worst before we look at the good. There are a number of group homes that are managed very, very well, but that's what it boils down to, is the management. If there's nobody on site, if there's nobody on staff to make sure that things are going on the narrow path, yeah, you're going to have problems. But that's why we also try to make sure that the residents or the group homes, whatever you want to call them, that we have on-site staff to make sure that things are being watched.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for First Ward Councilman Mike Trethewey, he'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450. Let me step back before the call to ask you a follow-up question involving the track situation. CSX says basically going to work on the trunk line to the Heinz plant. Am I correct on that?
I'm sorry, Gary.
Okay, that's all right.
Try to ask your question again.
All right. Is the work is specifically on the trunk line to the Heinz plant, which is the one that basically goes along 7th and Pine in that regard?
Correct.
All right. Has there been any talk about, and I've gotten some people asking, what about the, well, actually, to a certain extent, that trunk line also involves the trunk line that goes into Padnos's too. Am I correct on River Avenue in that regard?
Yes, it splits east of River Avenue.
Okay.
To come into our yard, and then goes to the south.
Okay.
Or southwest.
I just was wanting to make sure that we were on the same page on that particular trunk line. I know they've done work, obviously, on the main line a few years ago that goes, down to the south side to, out towards Chicago. And I believe they did some work over the last couple of years on the Hamilton Spur as well.
They have, right, specifically at 8th Street, 8th and Fairbanks. And then where they make a couple of the crossings, I believe, down to 40th Street, 48th Street, things like that. So. And then
the big, they put the new barriers down a few years ago on US 31 for the Hamilton Spur.
Correct.
So that basically, outside of the trunk, the spur line on the north side of town, which is not in the city of Holland, so we don't have to worry about that. But in terms of your jurisdiction, but I know that there might be some that might be concerned about the Douglas Avenue crossing west of River Avenue, but that's for another time. 395-1450, 395-1450.
Well, just follow up on that, Gary. Just for the information of the people that are listening, and as we had said before, every crossing has a sign. There's a blue sign that's about 5 by 7 that identifies the crossing by number, and it also gives you an 800 number to call. That's there specifically by state and federal law. So if you have a situation, take a look at that sign, get the crossing number, get the phone number, make a phone call. That's, I think, what helped us with 7th and Pine.
395-1450. And, of course, that number as well, not the 395-1450, but the 800 number, certainly is very helpful when you have a vehicle saying stuck on the tracks.
Exactly. And
let them know that it's there so you don't get, hello.
Yep.
You don't need that type of accident. We don't need to have that type of video of last second rescues. No, we don't need that at all. 395-1450. Mike, have you and council or perhaps staff heard any rumblings about the Holland Civic Center setting up its Smokin' Tulip eateries? I've gotten some scuttlebutt that some of the downtown restaurants not happy about the fact that the Civic Center is starting to muscle in their territory a little bit.
I personally have not, Gary. I've heard the rumors as you have, but nobody has contacted me directly about that. I can understand the concern, but I think there's a symbiotic relationship that can go on. You've just had Butch's has come back again, if you will, about a block and a half down to the west, and we are constantly expanding toward the water. That's the plan. The whole waterfront Holland plan. So I'm sure I'm going to hear some now that I've said that, but to this point I have not.
Talk about that expansion situation because of the fact that a lot of people would like to see the downtown district be eventually expanding into the Collin Park area. One major problem from my point of view of this entire thing is you got to deal with the traffic on 8th/9th Van Raalte. You know, that it's one thing to be able to do it along 8th Street because you can control the traffic, but in the immediate downtown area. But the further west you go, that's a major route that way.
And we have, during the charrette process, obviously there was 4 different versions that came out of what that might look like from the bridge to the south. We also had a number of studies that specifically around the old Western Tool Works, as people would know it now, the Boat Works area, on how to divert traffic around that, make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly, possibly using Washington Avenue, or there's a number of scenarios out there to do that. So we can do it. We can still keep the traffic flowing like it should be, but yet make it pedestrian friendly and open up the waterfront from Collin Park all the way to the bridge.
395-1450, 395-1450. A couple more things. First of all, it's for those of you out there, me, I don't count because I live in a condo. But for those of you out there that've got to take care of leaves, leaf collection begins in a couple of weeks, Mike.
Yes, it does. Our annual, or semi-annual, I should say, biannual, that starts September 26th. Leaves only in the fall. That will run, the last pickup will be the week of November 15. And then in the spring again, we do the yard pickup April before tulip time, and then you can put bigger things out there. But please make sure that you have leaves only starting on the 26th of September at the curb or in the curb strip if you don't happen to have a curb, and away from guy wires, hydrants and things like that, so the city equipment can get in there and pick those up.
And of course, I know some of the neighborhoods in the Heights area where your ward is. The leaves can be dumping dump a lot in a short period of time.
Very quickly, and the city staff will concentrate starting in the curbed areas downtown in the core area to make sure that we're not clogging up the drains and things like that. So they may be hit a couple of times before the Maplewood or the Holland Heights or things like that with the curb strips without curbs will be done. But the city staff does a great job doing that. It helps us actually because we mulch all these to help with the tulip lanes. This turns into an organic material, and we compost it and we utilize it. So we are recycling to the best of the ability.
Good morning. You're on the line with Councilman Mike Trethewey.
Mike, I want to know, you're talking about the leaves starting in a couple weeks, the leaf pickup. Well, the leaves aren't even off the tree, and they haven't even turned yet, most of them.
Wesley, it's a dartboard. Typically, and we've got some cold weather coming here pretty quick. They can turn very quickly. So I do have some falling already up here. It depends on what type of tree. But that's, and if there's no leaves, then don't put any out. But we need to start sometime for some that are starting to fall already, have some place for people to put them, and then wrapping up in November, weather permitting.
All righty. Thank you.
Appreciate the
Thank
call.
you.
395-1450, 395-1450. I'm sorry if it's going to be a curveball question, Mike. Where are we standing right now with the waterfront Holland issue, and most notably, of course, the James DeYoung plant? Obviously, COVID-19 has maybe thrown a curveball on that, but I believe that that issue is still, let's just say, it's simmering on the back burner, but it's still simmering.
It has been and will be simmering for quite some time. Just a couple of weeks ago, we got an agreement with a firm to help market that area. We're going to stick, especially on the waterfront, we're going to stick our toe in the water to see what kind of developments might be available for that, just to get the feel. We are a long ways off. There's private property along that whole route, 4 or 5 different property owners that we need to bring in, but COVID has definitely put a dent in us, but it has not stopped us. We are moving forward with that, albeit a little bit slower at this point.
And again, a point I've been bringing up, and I've chatted with a couple of your colleagues and with City Manager Keith Van Beek. What do you do about the DeYoung building? If you're going to tear it down, you got to deal with the asbestos issue in that and clean up it along those lines. That's not an easy answer in that regard.
No, and the BPW is putting out feelers right now. Obviously, until we get a design there or get some idea if the building is worth saving, and then where do we go from there? So we don't want to jump the gun. We also don't want the place to be dilapidated like a couple of the buildings that happened in the recent past. To make sure that we, if at all possible, if there is some sort of design that can go into that building, which there's been a number of different ideas, that we fully vet that out.
Unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time for this particular segment, Mike Trethewey, but I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town program, First Ward Councilman, and look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Gary. Anytime.
Thank you very much. That's Mike Trethewey on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.